we'll start with this. Brad Holmes sat down with Tim Twentyman, and for me, you hear me all the time say Brad Holmes is the best GM in Detroit Lions history. It's not saying much, but, I mean, we can all admit it's true. It's a bit out there, but still, it is true. And I think we all, and if I were to throw a poll in the chat right now, and I would ask for a vote of approval, yes or no, are you bought into Brad Holmes? I would say 95% of you would vote yes. Okay, well, why does that matter this morning? It matters because you see him speak, and he speaks so well, by the way. He's so well spoken. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And when he was describing Jahmyr Gibbs in his interview yesterday, running back was very little used, the word running back. It was an offensive weapon. It was a guy that could be a playmaker. It was a guy that could make an impact day one. And for guys like me, and I'm not going to shy away from it, for guys like me that hate, and I will use the word hate, the idea of drafting a running back in the first round, he has his way of speaking to where you can at least accept it. And if you want to be fully on board and support it, be my guest. I get it. I understand it. I don't think you've had a more competent GM, let alone a talent evaluator in the building, especially with the whole group up front, at the top of the front office. There's some big names up there. You got John Dorsey. You got Brad Holmes. You got all these guys that are going to be working with. You like what you're seeing. And the way he described Jahmyr Gibbs, and then he went into Jack Campbell, I just thought was interesting. For me, you'll never be able to convince me that drafting a running back in the first round is the correct long-term move. But if you want to tell me, hey, Adam, their window is actually right now because Philly and San Francisco probably have a year or two left at their peak, and then they're going to have to retool, and you can never really guess how that's going to go. And we're seeing Philly kind of do it. San Francisco returning almost everybody and adding Javon Hargrave. So
right.
If you want to argue their window is now to win the division, to win a playoff game, to get to the divisional round, and maybe get to an NFC title game in the next 2 years, okay. But as long as you're willing to say those are the expectations, and that's why you took these players, I'm willing to live with it.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a choice. One, the player's here, and I actually like the player. So there's a bit of a conflict of interest because I hate the position. I love the player. But hearing Brad Holmes talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it reaffirmed what most people said originally, not me included, which was this is a weapon. This is a guy we want day one. This is a guy that's going to be on the field replacing Swift. He's going to add so much to this offense.
Explosive. I think that word has been used every single time that Brad Holmes has talked about him.
Shots.
And I loved how Brad, he kind of gave his side of the whole positional value thing. And he said, I can't blame fans for feeling the way they feel. And I'm glad he addressed this too when he's like, guys, for months, not even just media, but fans, soak themselves in mock drafts, in guys that break down mock drafts, guys that do their own mock drafts, all the content that breaks down each prospect. And then you get to the draft, and then you go, Jahmyr Gibbs at 12? No. This is not what I had for months in all these mock drafts. And Brad's like, guys, no one has the information that they have in the building. So, and we talked about that too on the show. It's like, guys, Brad's perspective of these prospects is much different from ours. I mean, we do mock drafts, we talk about prospects, we watch film, but still to be completely shocked. For example, Brian Branch. I mean, there's a reason why he fell to the third round. Although I love Brian Branch, or the second round, excuse me. Although I love Brian Branch, again, we're shocked because in mock drafts, he's a first-round pick. But when the draft comes, things change. So I'm glad Brad broke that down. I know people may never understand taking a running back in the first round, but the more you hear Brad talk, and he kind of explains his reasoning more than just being an offensive weapon, like high IQ, high football character. There's a lot of things that Brad and Dan love about Jahmyr and Jack besides just what position they play. There's a lot of things they bring to the table. Like he said he talked to Jahmyr Gibbs about route running, and Jahmyr knew, not only does Jahmyr know a lot of different areas of the game because he had to He played receiver, he played running back. They moved him all around in Alabama. But those are the things they look at. And Jack Campbell, for example, guy that just strictly loves football, high football character. Like, they check a lot more boxes than just the position they play. So when Brad takes a player, there's a long length of process that goes into it. So again, and Colin Cowherd said this too. I think it was last week. He's like, guys, they had 2 good drafts. They didn't all of a sudden just get stupid. That's not how this works. So you give them the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. So at this point, we have no choice but to love the prospects, but also understand why he took a running back at 12.
Let's talk about the last few drafts, right? He opens up with Penei Sewell in the first round, Levi Onwuzurike and Ali McNeil, and then you find a gem in Amon-Ra St. Brown later on in that draft. And you really remember his first draft for those 2 players. Nobody else, really. Ali McNeil, nice player, but he's a nice player. That's all you can say. He's not Penei Sewell level or Amon-Ra St. Brown level. And that really won over a lot of people. It's like, man, where'd this kid come from? Boy, Penei Sewell, week 1, Nick Bosa, no problem. Then you moved him to right tackle. Super successful midway into the season. Cool. And then it was, not that the clock was ticking, but hey, this is the first draft where you have an abundance of draft capital. What are you doing with it? 2 and 32 and all the picks you have, da-da-da-da-da. We're going to take Aiden Hutchinson. Fell in our lap. Thank you very much, Jackson. Perfect player for this city.
Right.
The perfect player for this coach and what we're trying to build. And we're going to move up and take a wide receiver because we know how the game is played in today's NFL. You win with weapons. Offensive. Okay, no problem. The Jameson Williams thing hasn't really panned out yet. If you want to look at it that way, but you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to sit here and say or question the Jameson Williams pick yet, but to say I'm not concerned, I'd be a liar. I am concerned a little bit, but we'll move on past that. Now this past draft. This draft was different.
Oh, yeah.
This draft was really different. And when you do things that are either A, unconventional, or B, go against the trend, or how successful winning teams do it, and if you just want to use this past draft as an example, look at what the Eagles did, look at what the Chiefs did, look at what the Bengals did. Did the Bengals re-sign Jesse Bates? No, they did not. Did they invest in defensive line and offensive line in the draft? Yes, they absolutely did. When the teams that are getting to the final stage, hell, even the Niners, addressing the depth on the offensive end, they let their best tackle go. Okay, no problem. We're going to adjust. We're going to pivot. We can't pay that money, obviously, because I have a team full of all pros. We'll do this. We'll do that. No problem. When you decide to go against that trend, make it make sense to me. Please. And you have to back it up with success. Because as much as we all love Brad Holmes, Lions have never won a division yet under this regime. They've never won a playoff game, and they've, hell, never been to the playoffs. I know it's a harsh reality to face, but it's just the reality. That doesn't mean we all don't believe they're going to go out and win the division this year. We all do. But slow down. When you want to go against the trend, I hope you understand what it means. It's not that Jahmyr Gibbs just needs to be a very good player. No. It means he needs to contribute to your success at a higher level than most running backs do in the NFL.
Right.
It means that Jack Campbell, for all intent and purposes, needs to become one of the 10, 12 best linebackers in the NFL in the next 2-3 years. Just like you had the same expectations for Aiden Hutchinson. It's nothing to knock Brad. Were they drafted higher? You know me. I don't mind the Campbell pick. I have no problem with it at all. Drafting a running back, you know how I feel about it? I'm not going to sit here and repeat myself, but when you do it, it has to come with success, and he has to be a reason why. I'm curious.
And I love that Brad also mentioned how weak this draft was in terms of the depth. Because that was one thing that I mentioned last week, too. I think people compare every draft laterally. They're all similar. This draft isn't the same as last draft, and last draft wasn't the same as the previous draft. I mean, to go and get Aiden Hutchinson, for him to fall in your hands, and then you trade up and get Jameson Williams, this draft was not as deep as that draft. And Brad even mentioned that, too. He goes, we didn't have a 4th-round pick. They traded up to get Broderick Martin. But he even said verbatim, like, yeah, we didn't really, it didn't matter to us for keeping those picks because we didn't think there was an Amon Ross St. Brown in this draft. We didn't think there was, for example, Malcolm Rodriguez or even a James Houston in this draft. But you never know with Antoine Green. But still, the fact that he made that point kind of confirmed what we already thought was this draft wasn't as good as previous drafts.
But can we be honest here? What year are we in? 2023.
Yes.
Technology, video, social media. I bet you any money. You go to the Bob Quinn, Martin Mayhew, or Matt Millen drafts, and they would have sat up there and gave you the same spiel. I'm not saying Brad Holmes is talking out of his ass. He's not. He's the most educated, most committed, and so far the most successful in terms of roster construction GM you've had in this town. I have no problem with him at all. But for us as a fan base, just in general, and as media,
right,
when we dismiss, Brad Holmes knows what he's doing. Shut the fuck up. Who's earned that in the NFL? What GM has earned that? Please, walk me through the list. John Lynch? No. And he's one of the best. Who's earned that level?
I don't think anybody's earned that, but maybe you don't question it as much if you have high six. Like, for example, Brett Veach in Kansas City. I don't think no one questions them, but it's like they just won a Super Bowl. Like, I don't think no one really cares that they took
winning
X
a Super
player.
Bowl, having a 9-win season.
Right. There's
and
the
again,
difference.
Context matters, though.
Right.
The Lions went into a rebuild. They were a 3-win team his first year. He added talent his first 2 drafts. Nobody complained about the talent, except for the first 7 games of last year when it was Brad Holmes' fault, not Dan Campbell's fault. But we'll forget that. Don't worry, guys. I'll forget about that. Mm-hmm. And then you go into the 3rd draft, and let's be honest. He got 2 players you thought were going in the first round in the 2nd round. You got a guy that you thought would have gone in the 2nd round in the 3rd in Hendon Hooker. There was a lot of value. So, yeah, you know what? Maybe in theory he did reach on the running back. But I'm willing to swallow it because I know for a fact Jahmyr Gibbs is going to produce on the field. Sam Laporte is a good asset to this team. Brian Branch is the best safety coming out of the draft. Oh, and Jack Campbell's the best linebacker.
I was going to say, if you talk about per
you're getting
position,
position 1, position
yes.
2 with Jahmyr Gibbs, you could argue. I think that's pretty clear.
Some had him.
Jack
1.
Campbell ranked number 1. Brian Branch ranked
1.
number 1. Sam Laporte top 3. You're walking away with really good players. And then on some people's boards, Hendon Hooker was quarterback 3. So you got him in the 3rd round. Even if it was quarterback 4 or 5, it didn't matter. You got him in the 3rd round.
And I think that's the way to look at it. Although the running back in the 1st round, I understand. There's organizations in the NFL that feel the same way as a lot of these people. So I don't think that's a false or a wrong philosophy. But looking at the talent they got at each position, like you just listed, if you think about that and say that out loud, Braylon just mentioned that yesterday on Ermanni Networks too, Sam, if I'm not wrong, just where they rank at each position. That's the most impressive part. Like you said, the 2nd best running back, the best linebacker, the best DB in the draft, arguably, and the best safety. That's where the value comes in. And then, of course, Hendon in the 3rd round.
The Rams took Todd Gurley with the 10th pick in St. Louis in 2010. Well, what's the difference with taking Gibbs at 12?
They're different backs, too. But still, I don't think there's a...
What you think Gibbs is going to do in the receiving game?
Yes.
Gurley did that, plus carry the ball 25 times a game.
And that's why his career lasted 6 years. So
there's a big difference.
Right. I don't
we'll
think...
see.